Hey, you guys, welcome back to the 97 Demo Podcast, where we give you the latest in music, news, and a whole bunch along the way. I'm one of your three hosts, Nnamdi, joined by my two friends,
Nnamdi
and Avery DeWall.
You guys, so we have a lot to get into this episode. Namely, we'll be doing a fun run through of some of the most iconic Black Super Bowl halftime shows. Because when you look at the list and look at the content, that is really Black history in of itself. And sort of the bar we have for Super Bowl shows now can be really attributed to a lot of super iconic Black halftime performers. So we'll definitely revisit that in a couple seconds, minutes, not seconds. But before we get to that, I feel like the biggest music news story of the week has still been this whole Spotify thing, which I have conflicting feelings about, but not for the reason you guys think. And I'll get into them in a second. But basically, this Joe Rogan thing is really, really continuing to blow up, with more artists taking their content off of Spotify in protest of what started at first as the vaccine COVID misinformation thing. But I think now, thanks to Nnamdi, is growing to also be some of his use of the N-word. That viral compilation is going around of him saying it like 70 times, and that is just so damning. And I have seen some people say, like, well, why is this just coming out now? Where was the outrage for this before? They just want to, they're just trying to, I don't know. Well, I don't really know what the justification it is, but it doesn't look good for a boy.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's a lot, man. This Spotify is in deep, what right now.
It's $100 million purchase,
Yeah, exactly.
Rogan's put out like 2 videos in the past week apologizing for 2 separate things.
That is never a good look.
Exactly. That's not a good look, especially from like your number one podcast, like the number one thing that might bring people to Spotify. I don't know, man. It's just like I get it.
And Spotify's taken down like a bunch of his episodes.
70. I saw 70 last count.
I think it might have been more.
Oh, really? More now?
Yeah, I mean, man. I mean, these artists are justified in one of their music. Like, if they're like, I get it. I definitely get it. Like, if you're number one, Joe Rogan's like the biggest podcaster that Spotify sponsors, essentially. Like, and he's doing stuff. He's saying COVID misinformation. He's saying the N-word, which is like never acceptable. There's never a context where that's allowed.
Yeah. And I get it. I feel that what's standing out to me, the reason I wanted to bring this up is because prior to Nnamdi, I feel you had Joni Mitchell, you had Neil Young, you had people who were kind of artists with the older repertoire that could maybe honestly afford to say, I don't really need streaming. I got the bulk of my stuff when it was still you're buying music. I'm cool. I feel with Nnamdi, what I'm wondering is with her kind of saying like, look, he has the right to say what he wants to say. Spotify has the right to host them, but I'm not going to allow them to profit off of me when they have and use me to pay this guy who is saying X, Y, and Z. You're now that she sort of has made that the narrative, and you're seeing all that he said, and you're just thinking, I wonder how many more artists are going to think, wow, like they're paying me nothing, chicken scratch, and using the audience I help bring to help pay this guy millions to say this stuff.
Who's an ass.
So I'm wondering, like, if you're gonna see more. I'm shocked that I haven't seen a bigger name. I wonder if they're allowed to with contracts and stuff. But with Nnamdi, I'm wondering if we're gonna start seeing more prominent people say, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna be an Apple Music exclusive now. And I'm wondering why Apple hasn't done that. Like,
I've seen a couple people, like pretty high profile people, like leave Spotify, like cancel their subscription. And maybe not even just in necessarily like relation to this, but I saw like Anthony Fantano made a video about deleting his Spotify account. I forgot what the reason he did, because it was like a week or 2 before this happened. And then Matthew Cherry, who's a director, said he's, after the compilation of Joe Rogan came out, said he's deleting his Spotify account.
I mean, it's gonna take a lot of people to bring Spotify. I don't know if bring them down, but hold them accountable.
Yeah, because I don't even think, and I think Spotify for its part has probably done, from a corporate standpoint, everything they can do aside from kick him off. Because they've removed the episodes, they've announced a set of, they published their content guidelines, they've added a COVID, label, what have you, that directs users to a fact-based COVID hub, I think all that's left and what people ultimately want to see is for Joe Rogan to not be hosted exclusively on Spotify. And that's the question, but you just still have to wonder what will be the bigger hit in their eyes. Because at the end of the day, he has an audience of 11 million. But I guess we're a music podcast, not a business news industry. Well, we are industry news. I don't know. We'll just have to see what's
all
all
connected. It's all connected.
It is all connected.
Yeah, it's all connected. So.
But with that, now we get to the fun stuff, you guys. So our buddy in this week's headline, our buddy Grant Sharples, he got to interview Chicago-based rapper Saba about his new album, Few Good Things, which I believe Avery, I want to say it was you, like a couple weeks ago, that was like, y'all listen to this?
Well, it came out this week. I texted you.
I think a single, or like when a single came out.
Yeah, Avery's been on this like for a couple, because the singles came out like last year. It was like, man, I'm so hyped.
Saba's last album, Care For Me, is one of my favorite albums ever. So
Avery's a big Saba fan.
I was really excited for this one.
And one thing that I really, really noted in Grant's piece was that Care For Me, like, it was really sort of about tragedy. It was about someone he had just lost that was dear to him, and you kind of heard that in the music. This was like the opposite. And Grant got to talk to him about sort of that process of shifting I guess the goal of the album. So without further ado, here's our interview with Grant about that album. All right, so joining us now is friend of the pod, prolific music writer, dare I say, and just all around great guy, Grant Sharples.
Hello, happy to be back.
Grant, this is your first appearance on the third season now of the podcast.
Making my third season debut.
I mean,
Happy
that's
to do
three straight streaks at this point.
Maybe I can keep up the streak.
Yeah. So I saw you posted about your interview with Saba, and we all listened to his album. Avery, I remember you talking about it specifically, I feel, a couple weeks ago. And like, yeah, I just anytime you write about something, I'm always like, well, let's just bring Grant on to talk about it, because you're just really good at your job and you get great interviews and always come out with these great stories. So the first thing I guess I want to ask you is, how did this come together?
Yeah, well, I've been a fan of Saba since I heard Care For Me, because that was kind of his breakthrough, and then that came out in like 2018, so that was like 4 years ago now. And I heard it and I fell in love with it, and I would still say it's one of my favorite hip-hop albums. And then I kind of went back and listened to Bucket List Project and all that, and then I saw, I think in like November, that he was putting out a new record in early 2022. So I was like, I'm gonna try and interview him for it. And I've never interviewed a rapper before, so I was like, this could be a cool first rapper to interview. And so I pitched it to my editor Patrick at MTV, and he said yes. And then we tried to find out how to contact him, and then we did, and then sat down and talked to him one evening, which was nice because it was an evening and I didn't have to find a way out of work to do it. But yeah, it was really, really cool. He's a really interesting guy to talk to, and I really enjoyed the new record too. And something that stood out to me was the fact that he has a Daywave collaboration on it. That's an artist I didn't realize he was still even making music. And I saw Daywave in Colombia, fun fact. But
oh yeah. I feel like regarding that album itself, one thing that I thought was interesting about your conversation with him is Care For Me was sort of like heavier, you know, it was about sort of tragedy. I think he lost his cousin, and you sort of heard that in the music. It was like just sort of a melancholic at times album that got him like a wide array of praise, like a whole bunch of year-end list. And this, he says like, yeah, that was great, but like, I'm not trying to do that. Like, that's not the move. I am trying to get over that, you know? So can you talk more about like that part of the conversation, how in making this album, Few Good Things, the one goal was to not make anything that was like Care For Me?
Yeah, I thought that was super interesting when he talked about that, because Care For Me was such a breakthrough for him in a lot of ways. Like, it was critically acclaimed. It earned him a lot more fans. It was just a really solid album front to back. And I remember asking him if he felt pressure after having a larger platform to deliver. And he said, well, like you didn't see it right here, but he was like, one of the goals was to make the Anti-Care for Me, and that they often reference that album when making Few Good Things in terms of what not to do, because he was like, I don't want to do the same thing twice. And he was talking about how him and his fan base, there's almost like this tacit understanding that he can just kind of do whatever the hell he wants. And he's like, and they're just going to trust me on that. Like, he was also talking about like his upcoming tour and how traditionally he announces the tour before announcing the album. And he's like, all these people are buying tickets with pure faith that my record is going to be good. So that also kind of sets up this thing where I have to deliver. Yeah. So I guess that's my 2 cents. I thought that was a really, because I feel like most artists, when they have big success, sometimes they try to replicate the thing that made it successful. Yeah. And he did the opposite. And I think it pays off because Few Good Things is really good.
What did you like learn about him after this interview? Because I'm sure you did, obviously a fair amount of research, and then he has 2 very vulnerable albums back to back. Like, is there anything new you learned about him through the interview?
Anything new I learned about him? I guess I wouldn't say there's anything big. Something that I thought was cool that he talked about, where he was talking, I think I included it in here, but he was like, first and foremost, I'm a rap fan, because I was asking him about his collaborations, because he's worked with so many people, mostly, Chicago people, but, everybody from like Chance the Rapper to No Name to Smino to now Daywave and Crazy Bone, like, and so I'm like, how do your collaborations kind of inform your solo work? And one of the funniest things to me was because he and Smino are so close, and he was like, we have the same goal, and it's to have the better verse. And so I'm like, it's like a friendly competition, but he was like, I don't really like to, he was like, it's kind of like that, but I don't like to think about being competitive in terms of art. But he was talking about how they're both just big rap fans, and that anybody he works with, he's a fan of first. Yeah. And so he kind of respects where they're coming from in that regard.
You kind of mentioned that, how like, how where he's from really informed where he was. I mean, like where he was with his music. Did he discuss any more of like, specific people or specific places or things in Chicago that inspired him to do certain things, whether it was like artistically, like the art he used, or would he use music videos? Like, did he give you any info on like how Chicago was a influence as like a place?
He didn't talk about Chicago itself too much, but in terms of just like his influences, I asked him about what some of his like musical or non-musical inspirations for the record, and he said he almost kind of like tried to isolate himself so that other influences wouldn't seep into his own thing. But he said he was like, we had to pull this record up from the depths of like nothingness. And but in terms of like the visuals and the artwork, he was inspired by the photographer Gordon Parks. And I feel like you can kind of see that too when you look at Gordon Parks' photography. You can kind of see it reflected here. And I think the artwork, the visuals of this record are really beautiful, because you can kind of see things like aging and family, and in that kind of way, it pays homage to Chicago, because you see his great grandmother's home in Chicago and his family, and it pays a lot of, homage to legacy, and whatnot.
It's real intimate.
Yeah, it's very intimate.
Yeah.
Grant, I wanted to ask you, just one thing I noticed in your interview, in your writing, was I always talk about how one thing I look for in rap a lot is the storytelling. I think that's a huge component of making music as a whole. And I don't always think that's some like overrated process of sitting down and really like, thinking. I think it sometimes can be very simple. And he said something in here that you noted that I think summed that up well. And he was like, when I set out to make a project, a lot of times it's the same thing. Where are you right now in life? And he just focuses on thinking about how to convey that message. And that in itself is telling a story, because you're putting the thought into figuring out what you're doing and how to like communicate that to an audience through music. So can you just talk about what you got through your conversation about the amount of effort he puts into sort of like putting together this story, this like really cohesive and connected, and like you know, a lot of thought goes into it, sort of piece of art, as opposed to just dropping a record.
Yeah. Well, I think the main way that surfaces is in his lyrical detail. Like, for instance, my favorite Saba song is Prom King, because I love the way that it's set up. Because you have the first half, I know this is not like a new song, but like on the first half, you have him talking about, you know, his high school prom with his cousin Walt, trying to find him a date, and the kind of like, you know, innocence of that. And then on the second half, you fast forward a few years later and they're grown up, and he talks about his cousin getting murdered on the subway. Like, I think the way that he can tie seemingly disparate things together, because like you have, and the way he plays with duality in his lyrics, I think really enhances his storytelling. And I think Prom King is that's like the perfect epitome of that. But I think on Few Good Things, he does it as well. Like, he keeps talking about his origins, and the year 2012 comes up a lot. There's a song called 2012, but I like the title of this album too, because he talks about like focusing on what he has rather than what he hasn't. And a lot of that comes through, you know, growing up and his family and his friends, and I think that also surfaces in the collaborations, because a lot of these people he's working with are his friends.
Yeah. If someone's interested in this album, what song are you telling them to listen to?
You know, my personal favorite is 2012, just because I'm an indie head, and I also just feel like that's such a perfect intersection of like Saba's style of rap with the kind of like dream pop aura of Daywave. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is like, I feel like that song, that's like, I was like, this is like this caters to my taste so well. Just because I listen to a lot of that style of music, and it sounds like an indie song with Saba rapping on it, and like, that's perfect. I think it's really good.
Yeah.
And I love where it's placed on the track list too. It's almost kind of like because Few Good Things, the title track, that's the last song, but 2012 feels like it's kind of setting things up for the finale.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate it in that way.
Well, I feel like after I already listened to this, but after reading this piece and just getting to learn more about how he made it, I want to go back to it and revisit it and sort of give it another go. So definitely, Grant, thank you for coming on and talking about Few Good Things.
Yeah.
Thanks for talking about Saba. Honestly, any excuse to talk about Saba, I guess, is a good enough excuse to have an interview, regardless, you know. But thank you for joining us, man.
Yeah, thank you guys.
All right, so yeah, thank you again, Grant, for coming on and talking about Saba's album Few Good Things. I think you may find a song or two on our 97 demo February playlist, which you should all check out on Apple Music and Spotify. But with that was one of the many new releases that came out Friday. We also got a whole bunch of singles, a couple album, Mitski's album. So what did you all listen to like that stood out?
Avery?
I'll go. Okay.
Come on, Avery.
One of my favorite bands, Hippocampus, put out their third album, aptly titled LP3. Yeah, it's just some good indie pop rock. And it's like,
Are they copying JPEG Mafia? LP, remember?
I don't know. I don't know why they didn't give this one a name. I don't know why. It's just
Artists
like
just getting lazy. Artists just getting lazy. Like, oh man, just LP3 album.
But,
I'm just waiting
it
for artists to call
reminds
one
me,
album.
the sounds remind me of like early 2010s, like Vampire Weekend kind of stuff, and I really like it. So yeah, it's really good. You have
Good album?
a couple songs on the playlist.
Dope. Yeah, man. I almost thought about Saba, but I picked John Woo Flick, Conway the Machine, Benny the Butcher, West Side Gun. You know, the basic. Yeah, man. Conway's probably dropping another album. Benny the Butcher's probably gonna drop an album. I mean, they're all gonna drop albums.
Probably gonna drop like 3 this year.
Three this year. So
Three
I mean,
each.
I'm trying to think. Last year, I think Benny only did one. Oh, he did a couple.
No,
Actually,
he did 2.
Yeah, he did too. So
Mine's a
yeah, I
3.
mean, yeah, this is a good song. This is gonna go on my Griselda playlist. So yeah, this was fun.
You have a whole
Good
Griselda
track.
playlist?
You
It's for
have
like
a Griselda playlist?
I have a Griselda playlist for songs with just those three on it.
Ah.
Not with like every Griselda song, because that'd be like 3,000 songs, but
Yeah,
I have
really.
I have ones with just them three on it, so it has to have the main guys: Conway, Benny, Westside Gun. So John Woo Flick. It's a good song. So yeah.
I chose "Scared Money," which was the new collab with YG, Moneybagg Yo, and J. Cole. And beyond one, I think it's a great song. I think it's fire, but I picked it, of course, no surprise, because I thought Cole's verse was really good. And more importantly than that, I thought, we always say with J. Cole, like, yo, I wish he would just like kind of find a way to switch up his sound and sort of like keep up with, I guess, move with the time sort of thing with his music. And I feel Middle Child was kind of uses the example of that, and I wasn't for it. I wasn't a fan of the autotune. This to me sounded like that, like what I want Cole to sound like now on his own projects and his albums, because that's the energy was there, the way he was spitting the bars, he was talking his shit. Like, that's kind of what I want to see from J. Cole, and yeah, I just thought this is a really, really good collaboration. It's one that you wouldn't even, I feel, really suspect, YG and J. Cole, Moneybagg Yo, but it works really, really well.
It was fun. He was being witty. He was funny. It was good. I liked it a lot.
I feel like from an honorable mentions perspective, Nicki Minaj is probably the biggest commercial release this week. She put out Do You Have a Problem? Excuse me, featuring Lil Baby.
Which I think
this is her first big comeback single since, I think, Mega Yikes. I don't know. It's been a minute. But
what
you
guys
guys
think?
I don't want to go first. I know I have the contrarian take. I didn't think it was bad.
Okay.
I didn't think it was bad.
I didn't think it was bad.
Average.
I was just like nothing to get excited about. But I think the thing is this: I think Nicki Minaj fans will like it. Mm-hmm. I think Lil Baby fans will be like, "Oh, this is cool." Like I think Nicki Minaj fans will be excited to get music from Nicki. So I think this is fine for her. You know what I'm saying? Nicki is an established artist, so I think her fans will like this. Yep.
Yeah, and I think the Lil Baby crossover was smart too, because
Real quick,
it does sound like a thing. I don't know. It sounds like an album, a song I could hear on his album. So,
I agree. Real quick, since it was trending, Doja, the Snot featuring A$AP Rocky.
Yeah.
We have to talk about that real quick. Snot made saying he effed Doja. Doja came back at him. The song's great, actually. A$AP had a great verse.
Doja didn't even come back at him. She was just like, "I'm sorry, who? You did that with where?"
And he walked back. He was kind of like,
he was just like, y'all are hearing it wrong. He's saying, "I would, like, I aspire to one day, not I have." Come on, grammar.
Yeah, I've never heard of Snot, but A$AP had a good verse on here, and the music video was kind of cool.
Second week in a row where A$AP's had a great feature.
Excuse me? What was that?
I said he collabed with Flo Milli.
Oh yeah, but what Avery say?
This is the second week in a row he's had a really good feature.
Oh yeah. I thought he said something else. Yeah. I agree.
What do you think I said?
The A$AP Rocky.
Looked like you wanted to fight.
The A$AP Rocky hate is crazy on here, man. Sometimes A$AP Rocky hate is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like testing, but
true.
He can rap.
He can rap.
I thought you need to revisit testing, though. I kind of feel like the world needs to revisit testing.
Every
tries
financial quarter of every year.
Yeah, exactly.
Go back to testing.
I have never understood. I have never thought testing was bad. We're not talking. We don't have to get into a testing. We should do a testing deep dive. We should bring that back.
Please don't make me do that.
It's okay. It's fine. I'll enjoy it on my own.
But okay, guys. So I feel now it's time to get into the real discussion this episode, which, like I said, is sort of revisiting sort of all the iconic, not even just the iconic ones, the entire legacy, sort of the scope of Super Bowl halftime shows. One of my two co-hosts, I don't know who, phrased it, I think, perfectly: the Black history of the Super Bowl halftime show. Noah McGee. There you go. That to me sums it up perfectly, because it really is the Black history and how it sort of shaped the overall history of the Super Bowl halftime show, the cultural significance it's played.
Yeah.
So I guess, honestly, I think we got to take this all the way back to 1972 if we want to be really honest with it and really sort of put it all into focus, because that's
into perspective.
Into perspective. Yes, sir. Because that's when Ella Fitzgerald, she became the first Black woman to perform a halftime show. And it was a Louis Armstrong tribute, because he died the year before.
Wow.
it's not what you think of when you think of a show now. There wasn't like, it wasn't this huge spectacle of a show, but I think it is significant for this time, and the fact that, just listen to those names. Ella Fitzgerald doing the Louis Armstrong tribute,
Yeah. I mean, looking back, like, a couple nights ago, we went back, we were just looking about like all the artists who performed at the halftime show. And it was like, and you obviously, like, the first thing my mind goes to is like, oh, Michael Jackson was the first. Like, that's what you like most people think of. And he's like the birth of like the modern halftime show. But when you think, when you actually go back and saw that it was Ella Fitzgerald, I was like, oh, that's shocking.
She was like the first celebrity to like do the Super Bowl. So I know like Michael, like you said, Mike set the standard for what like the grandiose nature of a Super Bowl halftime show. But in terms of like having a big celebrity and a star as a halftime show, it really started in '72 with Fitzgerald.
Yeah. Exactly, and honestly, let's talk about Michael. You had a chubby checker in between in 1988, but like you guys were saying, the sort of our perception of the halftime show was honestly shaped by Michael Jackson in 1993. Like the dynamic spectacle, the huge stage, the lights, the dancers, the choreography.
He stood there for 2 minutes at the start of it and just stared.
And let's talk about the fact that that's power. I'm not sure there's anyone right now that could do that. That could just
that was stage presence.
That was stage, maybe Beyonce, but even
Beyonce.
I mean, we should also mention that prior to 1972, like quickly, like it was bands, the college
HBCU,
bands, specifically HBCU bands that were doing the halftime show, like FAMU,
and that's really important.
Exactly.
And I think at Prince's, which we'll get to later, that he had the FAMU band behind him as well.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool to see that HBCUs were a part of this, considering like, we think of halftime shows and Black history of halftime shows. We're thinking about these big artists, but HBCUs is not like it's not a small thing to see that they were on this national stage, performing, considering like HBCU bands are well known, always known for putting on a great show and whatnot. And, when you go to a football game at HBCU, football game, a lot of people are coming for the halftime show because of the band. So I think it's pretty cool to see that these bands were performing. So yeah,
I agree, and we'll get to it, of course, when we later. But one thing I think that's noteworthy for is when Beyonce, I feel, had her performance, specifically in 2016 when she came back with Coldplay and them, and she had the all Black, ensemble with dancers and everything. A lot of people were like, "Wow, this is like a first. It's really cool to see this." And I think it's sort of good to note that, like, no, there's precedent of Black marching bands for multiple years. Like if you go back and look, there was several years throughout the, I think, 80s and 90s where like Grambling or FAMU or one of the HBCUs had the show.
Southern,
so, important part of history. But
I agree.
To you guys' point, so Michael Jackson raised the bar, sort of sets the expectation of what a performance is. And I sort of feel, you have Patti LaBelle, who delivers a good show, but Diana Ross, I think, is who ups the ante again, because we're too young for this, because none of us were born in '96. But I don't know, like if you ask my mom what's the best Super Bowl performance, she's gonna tell you Diana Ross when she got in that helicopter and it lifted her up, into the air of the stadium. She starts going around waving at everyone, because that was sort of the first time you did the whole like flying, adding like a big like sort of event or like bump to your actual performance, where it's not about the music anymore, it's about what extra thing you're doing to make it extra grandiose.
Kind of like, remember when Lady Gaga, I don't remember if that was Lady Gaga, when she was like coming down and like, I don't know if that was her.
Jumped off the seat.
Exactly. Which is, that's interesting, considering like Diana Ross did it like, 20 plus years ago, did the same thing, except just in a helicopter. But it's like these things that like, people are like, oh my gosh, people are jumping from this super performance. Some people like to hate it, like, can we just make it about the music? But this has always been a thing. Diana Ross came from a helicopter, was waving at people. It's showmanship, for sure.
You don't get, I mean, obviously Michael Jackson made incredible music, but you don't get Michael Jackson just for the music. You get it for the spectacle of it.
Absolutely and you guys, I just think, just keep this in mind when you think about Michael Jackson's performance. Just one more thing, that performance got 133 million views. It's one of the most watched events in TV history.
You're talking about just on TV?
Just think about that, just TV. And now you look at the numbers and they're about 117, I think will be considered really high, like 118 million if you're fancy. Michael Jackson got 130. That's just insane.
That's insane considering how big the Super Bowl has even gotten since 1993. Like considering like the Super Bowl is really like a holiday.
Yeah.
But like the fact that then I'm not saying like the Super Bowl wasn't like it's a small thing. It wasn't.
No,
but like
it coincides with how big these performances got. Where like it was such a home run for the NFL.
Yeah.
That they could like market the Super Bowl along
as
with
its own
football. There's this incredible performance that's going to happen at our halftime show with this big star that you like.
And in fact, a lot of the people are coming on just to watch the halftime show, and then like, okay, I'm checked out for the rest of the game. Like, there's literally people that are on just to watch the halftime show.
And it's as much of a discussion now of like who's going to play the halftime show as it is like
As
who's
the game.
going to host this award show
Exactly.
or play in the Super Bowl. You know,
exactly.
It's just one of those like cultural American staples we have now of like who's going to do the halftime show.
Agreed.
Yeah, completely agree with you guys. So sort of after Diana Ross, she started getting the bigger shows that started having more so ensembles as opposed to like one big headliner. We have it here on the screen. If you're watching on YouTube, you can always see we have a timeline of all the shows. Like in 98, you had Boyz II Men, Queen Latifah, Smokey Robinson, The Temptations, Martha Reeves. 99, you sort of went back to that headliner and Stevie Wonder and Gloria Estefan. They were the two biggest performers that year. And the funniest thing about that Stevie Wonder bit is I went back and watched it before this, and his entrance is he's driving onto the field in a car, and the first thing I noticed is he's in the driver's seat, and I'm like, how is this happening?
I know. It's just how it works. You know, it's a business, guys. Okay,
it's a show.
It's a show.
But
it's a show.
with
It's a show.
him, it was just such a production, and I still think you owe that to like Michael Jackson, Diana Ross. Like it was just a huge production. Yeah, he had to be led around, but he still had hundreds of dancers around him, like doing the whole thing. And it was also significant to me because I know Gloria Estefan isn't Black history, but the fact that she was singing songs all in Spanish at that time, I thought was also pretty fascinating.
I think that's significant. Yeah. You know, just a couple years ago, we had Shakira and Jennifer Lopez and J-Lo, which I think was significant. And I can't remember the other artist who was with them. I forgot who it was.
Bad Bunny? Bad Bunny showed up, right?
It was J Balvin.
I'm pretty sure Bad Bunny was there.
It might have been Bad Bunny, but either way, it was significant to have a bunch of Hispanic Latino artists. I know Pitbull, he was asking for that, but I think that was significant. 2001, we have Tony Braxton, Mary J. Blige. Mary J. Blige is going to be back there, but 2004 is significant for.
I think it's important to just remind people that the Mary J. Blige, like she's about to come back twice. I didn't realize that. That sort of makes her, I think, kind of big, not bigger, but it makes her a little bit more special than everyone else.
A little more iconic.
She's done it before. A little bit more iconic. Yeah,
a little more iconic.
Visiting the stage,
helping her legacy for sure. But the Janet Jackson thing.
2004.
It's significant for multiple reasons. Obviously, having Janet Jackson is significant because people love to say, "Oh, she's just Michael Jackson's," but she was also like one of the biggest, if not the biggest pop star in the world at the time, well known beyond that. And
I'd like to also remind people she wasn't alone. P. Diddy and Nelly were also part of the show. It was also it was like Kid Rock was there. It was a big like people often forget how big much like of a spectacle this show was because of the last 30 seconds of it. How
about the last 10
Timberlake
seconds?
Was there as well.
Timberlake was there. We still don't forgive you, bro.
The infamous, let's just say it, the infamous wardrobe malfunction happened, and this episode really coincides with Janet Jackson's documentary that just came out, and she talks about it, and she sort of reveals that like it was just a wardrobe malfunction that got so blown out of proportion. And that's how I feel about it looking back. And I think I can say this through the lens of being a younger person who maybe grew up in a society that was a little bit less conservative. And, early 2000s, it's at this point almost 20 years ago, and they still were a little bit more like buttoned up about what they wanted to see in the family-friendly Super Bowl. So, the fact that you're dancing a certain kind of way is enough to get some people mad. But the fact that this Black woman was just villainized for a 0.8 of a second nip slip, And that basically an entire industry blackballed her because of it.
I'm still confused. Like even at my young age, like thinking about, it, I was like, I'm so confused. I'm like, it wasn't her fault. It's not like she just.
Yeah,
It's like literally was a
It goes into this really is about if we want to get deep, this is a perfect example of the patriarchy and sort of this like sexism and misogyny, honestly, misogynoir, because you saw her sort of get exposed on the stage where she was the passive person in this. Yet the go-to instinct was, how was this Black woman trying to profit? What did she do wrong? She was trying to do this as a stunt. She was trying to get attention. She was trying to be bad. And people will say, oh, well, it's because Janet didn't speak. She just ran. She didn't make a statement. She didn't do anything. Well, maybe because she was horrified at the fact that the entire world and her parents and 100 million people just saw her nipple. And right now, everyone's just mad at her. You know,
she was the scapegoat for the situation.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
And everyone wanted to blame someone, and she unfortunately was the one.
And Nnamdi, I'm glad you mentioned how like it's all happening, you know, while a lot of people are watching her documentary, a lot of people are going back listening to her music, and Janet just got a bad rap for that, which she didn't deserve. Her
career, I don't think people give enough weight to how Janet Jackson's career effectively never recovered.
She was never quite that pop star again.
The album she was promoting within that album, I think it was Demita Joe. I don't remember though, but it didn't. MTV wouldn't play it because Les Moonves was mad that Janet Jackson, who was the CEO of CBS at the time, CBS Viacom, wouldn't let her. Was upset that she wouldn't bend the knee and apologize multiple times. Mind you, she did it. She apologized on air already. She went on the news to apologize. He was mad she wouldn't go to the Grammys, apologize. So he uninvites her. He bans her from all CBS Viacom products. So they're not promoting her. The radio stations aren't playing her music. And MTV, which is huge at the time, isn't playing any of her videos or doing anything with her album. So she eventually, a whole industry started working against her for something that was out of her control. And I get she wants us to just be cool with Jay Timberlake. But the fact that like Justin Timberlake got to go to the Grammys and perform and win all those awards, and Janet Jackson was uninvited.
And he did it again.
And he did it again.
And did it again. It wasn't that good.
And did Super Bowl again. And you know, she says in the documentary, he wanted me to perform with him. I said no, but we're friends. And
I think Janet should have the opportunity to do a set again in the Super Bowl. I think she should have that.
Wants to.
I know. I get it. And I understand that for sure. But I think there should be, not with JT, hell no. But I think there should be a, hey, Janet, we want you back. What we did was wrong. Oh, it's not even necessarily the NFL's fault, but it was obviously the response to it. But I think just showing like, hey, you know.
And I think she knows, this is the last thing I'll say about it. I think she knows if she were ever to do a performance with him, it would be more about him than her.
Exactly. Look at JT doing the good thing. Look at him.
It would complete his arc. We forgive him now. They had a performance together. They're friends. It's cool, you know?
Yeah.
So, anyway,
still love you, Janet.
2004. Luckily, after that, the shows honestly got a little bit whitewashed. They went back to having older rock bands. They weren't doing a lot of entertainers. So you didn't really see any Black acts until 3 years later, 2007, when Prince delivered the Double E performance, sometimes still called the best halftime.
Yes, a lot of people. Ever. Yeah, some people consider that the best.
I mean, I get it. After watching it again this morning, I get it.
Yeah, Prince,
it's really damn good.
Yeah, Prince is incredible, man. Prince is incredible.
That stage presence too, you know. He says, "Can I play this guitar?" And then just plays like
I'm trying to remember. Iconic is this guitar the one where it rained?
Yes,
it rained.
It rained.
He had.
They just don't do it. They just don't perform live like that anymore.
Samuel was there.
Yeah,
it was great.
Didn't the Red Hot Chili Peppers in 2013, I think, get flack for like not really? They were like lip performing their guitars or whatever. And they were like, "Oh, we have to because of the Super Bowl."
Pretending to play the guitar, but Prince was playing.
And they were like, "Well, we have
Prince
to."
Was playing.
But Prince, I'm pretty sure Prince was playing.
Oh yeah, he was playing.
That.
Yeah. I think Prince was doing it.
It's pretty iconic. And there's a moment where he like stops singing and like lets the crowd sing. And I think what you see with a lot of halftime shows is that like it's played up for the TV and like maybe like a lot of people in the crowd like aren't really into it.
Yeah, it's the fake crowd.
Yeah,
it's a
he
fake
stopped
crowd
singing for a second, and you could hear the entire stadium singing his song.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah,
and that's a tough thing to do because then every time with these Super Bowl shows, those little video will come out. Somebody in the crowd be like, "It was quiet up here," you know, it was like, and nothing happened. And obviously, there's like not a fake crowd, but there's a crowd on the field of people just like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? that's there for obviously dramatic effect. But yeah, not a lot of artists can do that nowadays, especially. So yeah.
And another thing that stood out to me about Prince is that performance was just him on a stage. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't.
He had some dancers around him.
There was some. I mean, yeah, there were some dancers, but I don't feel like he relied as much on sort of the
word of the day
as you see, like the.
No, he was definitely like a rock star on that stage.
He was a rock star on the stage where he was like, me, my presence, a couple of dancers, maybe my instrument is enough. Like I don't need to have a statue of me that's towering over everyone or descending from a plane or anything.
The cool, I guess the most extravagant thing he did was had that like big sheet and like his silhouette was there playing guitar.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
That was cool. That was really cool. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see what we have. A couple years after, you have the Black Eyed Peas 2011. We wanted to include that because will.i.am, shout out to him. It still was a big show at the time. 2012, you had Madonna, but she featured LMFAO, Nicki Minaj, and CeeLo Green, and I actually recently learned that that's, I think, the 4th or 5th most watched halftime show ever.
Really?
And part of that is credited to the fact that, Madonna at that time may not have been the most current singer, but she got people who were really LMFAO. They were huge 2012. That was right after Party Rock Anthem.
Yeah.
Nicki Minaj.
That was the biggest song ever.
CeeLo was huge.
This show was very extravagant too.
Yeah.
The statues, how they got carried in, all that.
Yeah, that was a lot.
Of course, ladies and gents, the show, the halftime show of the halftime show.
It's like for our generation.
For our generation, I think. And I think for the purpose of Black history, I'll almost say. Because it was the best show since Michael Jackson. But you had Beyonce in 2013, who I think, is that a hot take? I think without a doubt, Beyonce 2013 is
probably my favorite.
Probably.
Yeah, Beyonce was great. Having Destiny's Child back was great. I mean, it's Beyonce. I don't know what else we have to say.
Yeah, it's Beyonce.
It's just Beyonce. I don't know what else we have to say, but I mean, she stole this. Go ahead.
No, she didn't have any. It was Beyonce and Destiny's Child, the group that Beyonce was the lead singer of before. She relied. I think the thing that makes her different than almost everyone else, except the Michael Jacksons, the Diana Ross, and the reason why I put her in that category.
Oh, it's her catalog. It's like just her.
It was just her.
Yeah, it was
her, and you got to see why she, holds the place in people's like minds that she doesn't, and it's sort of so revered because Beyonce can go out there and just entertain, like starting with the fire silhouette, and having the whole. If you felt the energy in the crowd, and wasn't that the year the stadium lost electricity afterwards?
Yeah,
because of after the performance.
I think that was it.
It was just it put her for me in the category of Michael Jackson and Diana Ross for actual as far as performances and showmanship goes at halftime show performance.
Agreed. Totally agree. In 2015 we have Lenny Kravitz, Missy Elliott. I don't know who's the main. Who's the headline?
Katy
Perry.
Which is the most halftime show ever. So,
the most watched halftime show.
The most watched apparently, which I'm confused though, because I'm pretty sure it's the most watched with like 120 mil, but Michael Jackson had 130. But either way, that's called the most watched. So
maybe in the last 20 years, I don't know.
And I think it includes like other platforms too, but
I agree. And I think 2016 is significant for multiple reasons in Black history, because obviously Coldplay was the headline, but Beyonce came out with her Black Panther themed performance and kind of stole the show.
Formation
right after Formation dropped.
That week, I think it was the same week.
And we got to talk about this for multiple reasons, because after that show, I don't know if you guys remember this, people were protesting outside the NFL building in New York because of the Black Panther stance. I don't know if you guys remember that, because people were like, "Oh my gosh, what's up with this? What is she doing?"
I remember people were mad at Beyonce. Remember the day Beyonce turned black? SNL did the whole skit.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I think I felt a little like, wow, Beyonce's really doing it. I noticed the shift because I think there's something, and it was just shocking that it happened at a Coldplay show, but Beyonce coming out with, it was a homage to Malcolm X and sort of the Black Power movement. That wasn't made up, she that wasn't intentional sort of imagery was there. I do think people people who were tying her to like extremism were doing way too much.
It was reach.
That was a reach, but it was sort of a homage to Black empowerment,
Mm-hmm.
Her outfit kind of echoed what Michael Jackson wore, honestly, in '93, with the gold like X across the chest.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I wouldn't be surprised if she tried to pay homage in that way.
Yeah.
She probably did. Yeah, and
Bruno
I think
was there too, of course.
yeah, Bruno, and they had a good little thing going on too.
Yeah.
And I think when we get to this point in the Super Bowl history, because we're going to 2019, we have to talk about the Jay-Z, his involvement in this, because after this, you know, between 2016 and 2019, that's the next time a Black artist was performing at halftime, which is Travis Scott, Big Boy. That's when the Colin Kaepernick, not controversy, is because it's not a controversy in my eyes.
No, it was very much so a controversy.
Yeah, you know, I get it for people, for some people, but you know, I obviously, Colin Kaepernick, he was taking knees to, you know, really bring awareness to, you know, the violence against Black people, police brutality and whatnot, and obviously that drew a lot of heat to the NFL and its owners and people, and it was a big conversation going on.
Well, I feel like you have to. That was happening in 2017. So let's be mindful. 2019 was a Travis Scott show. So in between, though, like all that, it wasn't just the kneeling. By then, it was already the Kaepernick didn't get any offers from a team after that year. He was a free agent, not getting any offers, and the collusion accusations. Mm-hmm. That was all around 2017, 2018. So the NFL was just not popular because at the time it was not only did you punish them for this, but now you're at least they're accusing you of colluding against them and blackballing them. It was him and Eric Reed at the time. So it just wasn't popular at all for any Black artists to do the halftime show. And honestly, in general, I think it was I remember it being very hard for them to find someone to perform for those
around
years.
This time, like Rihanna, that was like not publicly, but it came out that like Rihanna had declined the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She was like, they're absolutely like, no, I'm not doing it around this. I'm not doing it at all. Because of that, when you have someone as big as Rihanna saying no, no one else really wanted to do it. Yeah. So I remember Travis Scott did it and got flack for it. You know, I remember people being upset, like, wow, really?
This is also obviously around the time that Donald Trump was coming to national significance. That was not insignificant with
this is
around
NFL
Ferguson
owners, as well.
And
he was saying fired Colin Kaepernick.
Remember you saying that? How many NFL owners like had donated to Trump's campaign, you know, including Robert Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots, who was also a big part in bringing Jay-Z to the NFL.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Jay-Z, I think, in my opinion, killed two birds with one stone. I think he saw a need. The NFL was in severe need of they were in a PR crisis.
Crisis.
And Jay-Z has enough sort of respect and admiration within the Black community that if he comes in and says, you know what, we're fixing it, people are going to be like, okay, you know, maybe they're fixing it. And that's essentially what happened.
Yeah.
He came in. I remember he had that little meeting with Robert Kraft.
Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
You know, and he was like, we're going to do better. We're going to have all these funds and we're going to, you know, but here, Inspire Change Initiative. And essentially, I think I just saw it as a way, at least from a music side, that artists were like, okay, it's not permissible again for me to do the halftime.
Because Jay-Z was like, hey, let me open up an olive branch. So like, hey, NFL artists, let's work together again. Even though people, I remember at that time, even though there was a lot of people support, a lot of people were still questioning what Jay-Z's true intentions are, because obviously Jay-Z's a businessman also.
Where's the Jamel Hill piece? What did she say in that headline again?
The headline is he helped the NFL. Jay-Z helped the NFL banish Colin Kaepernick.
Jay-Z, because the outrage was now muted. Like that could have, think about it. If Jay-Z doesn't step in, that sentiment could have been there. We don't know. I'm sure they would have written a check big enough for some artists to jump. But like, I do think that kind of negative image, that sentiment of y'all aren't for us would be there. But when you can now say, oh, Jay-Z is really helping handle this, not only are you making it permissible to be a fan, but you're making it permissible to be an artist and say, okay, well, let me do my business. So you saw Shakira and J-Lo come that first year back after. I think the year after you got The Weeknd. So this is so recent. You got The Weeknd. I don't think The Weeknd does this if Jay-Z isn't involved, by the way, but he puts on his pandemic show. And now you have, I guess, this third show that Jay-Z has a hand in playing. And y'all, just think about it. But just wait, I just want to say this one last thing. Just think about the fact that Jay-Z's sort of role in this now is I'm helping you plan halftime shows.
Yeah, exactly. So exactly.
Think about how removed that is, though, from like all the other stuff that they're supposed to be doing. It's really just now I'm the halftime show guy.
Well, they also donated money to different organizations and partnered with the Rock Nation and the NFL collectively donated. It's not just like the musical side, but
For
I
sure.
know,
I'm
but
not
like,
saying
I
the
think
intention of all of it is.
the reason
Yeah.
why I wanted to tap into Jamel Hill, because my beef with that is that's cool, but if the supposed protest before was because we don't like what the league did in response to the kneeling, police brutality, and the treatment of the players who really like advocated for those causes within your league,
Yeah.
Jay-Z helping the NFL donate to some charities does not absolve them of all that. And I think
Yeah.
that's why some people still feel the way they do about the NFL and say, well,
And Jay-Z. People
and Jay-Z, because
some people are like,
there is a crowd that's like, he capitalized off this. He just
Yeah,
essentially like got himself a job.
people are saying he's playing the little game so he can set himself up to own a team or something like that down the line. People are still questioning. You know, some people gave him a pass to see what he's gonna do, but some people are not
And then
giving him
there's
a pass. So yeah, Nessa, his girl, well, she stands by her man, and I respect it. But yeah, man. I mean, we still got to see it with Jay-Z. Like, I think it's great. He's bringing in like this halftime show that's coming up. This is the blackest halftime show.
I know,
of
but
my
I do want
lifetime.
to read what Avery put on the screen here. Colin Kaepernick's girlfriend saying, I think there was a quote from Jay-Z's group where they're like, you know, we talked to Colin, they were involved in this, you know, he supports the move, some to that degree. And Nessa was like, this is a lie. Colin never spoke to Jay-Z in the NFL ahead of that deal. They never included him in any decision. So that's why, again,
It's
it
crazy
really
they just lied.
They just lied. Just lied.
That's wild.
All this was they made it permissible to do the halftime show again. It was really a ploy for the public that we all fell for, which is fine. I mean, if you're fine with it, you're fine with it. But I think there's two sides to this. It's great that they're now impacting change and donating to social and racial justice movements, but it very much so was sort of a PR crisis in need, and someone seeing an opportunity to inject themselves in that in a mutually beneficial way.
It also worked, by the way.
Worked.
Yeah,
It
because
worked.
that's what we're all watching this year, aren't we?
We're all watching the Super Bowl. Remember, people, there was this like small, like, we're not watching NFL, and it kind of didn't really work. But because numbers are up like 1,000, like hundreds of percent, you know, like in terms of
And
people
that'll
watching.
always be a really hard, complex thing, because at the end of the day, the NFL is a predominantly black league. And even beyond players, just thinking about the people who work in the stadiums and security and like actual staff, a predominantly black league. So it's always very, very tricky to figure out how to hold them accountable for racial justice things, because you know you don't want to see people out of a job, but
exactly. And they're the biggest league in the country by far in terms of people watching, the money they bring in. Yeah. It's kind of ridiculous, but
you can't tell the history of the NFL without talking about what happened over the last 10 years. Without touching on Kaepernick, without touching on Eric Reed, without talking about the concussions, without talking about any of this stuff. It's all connected.
Oh yeah, the brain norming, the race norming. Let's not, which I still think is the most underrated, messed up thing.
That's a big story too.
We'll get into that later. Just Google NFL race norming if you are curious. And now Brian Flores.
Yeah. Oh my God, there's a lot going on right now.
Yeah,
a lot going on right now. But you know, kind of keeping it with the halftime show, it is interesting. And I think it is pretty cool that we're about to have the blackest halftime show of our lifetime. You know, when we see Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Mary J. Blige, Kendrick Lamar, and Eminem, but like, you know, and Eminem, but like, it's you know, that's the thing where like people can get wrapped in again. It's like, oh my gosh, look at this halftime show. Look at this, all these black people.
It is star-studded.
It's star-studded. I'm gonna watch. We're all gonna watch. We're all gonna talk about it. We're all gonna enjoy it. Hopefully.
It's funny. I feel like it's like appealing to like my music taste over my whole life by having like Eminem and then Kendrick Lamar. And then also like you know, getting older and rediscovering Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and Mary J. Blige's music.
Mary J. Blige, yeah. So I think it'll be interesting.
Never forget, only one of them has done the show before. And it's Mary J. That's all I'm saying.
I'm surprised Snoop Dogg hasn't done it before, honestly.
I'm not. People forget what Snoop Dogg's image was during his peak. I'm honestly more surprised that Snoop Dogg now has shows making cakes with Martha Stewart. Okay.
Well, but he's been doing that for it's just he's been Uncle Snoop for so long now. It's like, I'm surprised he just didn't come on and do a little
roster. He was never Uncle Snoop, while he was also like that guy in the music industry.
Oh, I agree.
Uncle Snoop came out, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, he was never the personality and the music artist at like the same time, like the good one. He was never that. That was different times, obviously. Exactly. So yeah, but man.
Okay, well, y'all, I'm really happy we did this episode. I think it's always nice it was a nice way to tap into Black History Month.
We got into a lot.
Just talk about the Super Bowl, which is coming up. Well, because as we clearly have demonstrated, you just can't talk about the halftime show and what it is and its significance now in America without talking about all the Black people who shaped that. So
honestly, with how much controversy has surrounded the halftime show over the last few years, like it was surprising to me to look back in this and see just how like Black the halftime show like was, or how it was shaped by Black artists.
Yeah, absolutely.
And bands and all that
And
stuff.
bands.
too.
Like, no,
Like
I had
that-
no clue. Ella
I had no
Fitzgerald
idea
was
about the
first
HBCU
one.
thing. And Ella Fitzgerald, yeah, that's significant.
Literally, it's always been Blackness and has always been intertwined with the halftime show performances, and I expect that's something that'll still continue.
Black history is American history.
Boop, there you go. Oh,
There you go.
I like that.
You like that. You like that. You like that. You like that.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and wrap this episode up real quick. I'll just fly through Billboard highlights. Only thing I really want to mention on the Hot 100 is that We Don't Talk About Bruno from Encanto is still like the Disney kids song. It's number one on the charts. I don't even
Great
think
song.
the Frozen song did it for more than 1 week. I don't remember, but apparently that's like the new It song. I have not watched the movie. Have either of you watched the movie?
Yes,
Have not
is
watched it.
very
I
good.
plan on watching it today.
You should watch it.
Avery, is the
It's
song
very
a
good.
bop?
Yeah, this song is absolutely a bop.
We don't talk about Bruno, who was Bruno. Come through. Let me stop. Okay.
Oh, I was like, wait, is
kinda
that
embarrassing.
the song or is that just Avery? Is that just
Definitely
not? Is that just not you?
And then the only other thing I wanted to mention is I just happened to stumble across the weekend's chart
Ah.
placements, and I thought it was interesting. He has 3 songs on the Hot 100. Number 19, the highest charting one, is "Save Your Tears," featuring Ariana Grande. So nothing from his new album.
No sacrifice. Oh,
In fact,
man,
he
that's
only
wild.
has 2 songs from the new album. "Sacrifice" does come in at 37, and then "Take My Breath" at 85. But there's
Sacrifice
nothing
is
else.
a
And it's
banger.
just
Bop.
that's just so shocking to me though, because I thought it was so good, but
man.
we're seeing that at least right now. It seems to be coming and going. I will say he fares better slightly on the Billboard 200 because he still has his album. I think is still number like 3, and next week is projected to actually jump ahead of Gunna for the first time and be number 2.
It's a
So
long
there you
race.
go.
It's a long race.
And the Weeknd's still deep in his bag because I believe his Highlights album still in the top 20 of the 200. So people are still listening to the Weeknd. It's just interesting to see how the singles are playing out.
You have
I
some,
also
you have
just
some
wanted to-
Meatloaf love on Billboard too.
Yeah. Because we didn't really talk. I don't think I think we were deep in our hiatus when he passed away. But "Bat Out of Hell" re-entered the chart at number 13. And I'm doing the math. That to me is saying all the people who streamed sort of as they were remembering him. And after watching Fight Club with my buddy Avery and seeing Meatloaf in that, I went down a little rabbit hole. And this is really this is his biggest piece and like sort of was big in establishing operatic rock.
Hold on, you just saw Fight Club?
I hadn't watched Fight Club before. No, I was new. I
Meatloaf
was
is
literally a week
fantastic in that
ago.
movie.
I know we're a music podcast, but what'd you think?
It was great. It was great. Oh
Cool,
my
cool,
god,
cool.
my mind exploded. No, we'll talk after. I don't want to.
Let's talk. Okay, cool,
Um,
cool,
my
cool,
mind.
cool.
I want
would
to
implore-
rewatch it because now all the little glitches at the beginning, I'm like, if we pause and zoom in, I think I know what that glitch was. But anyway.
I would tell anyone who, if you haven't listened to Meatloaf and like just want to listen to one of his songs, there's a song called "Paradise" by the Dashboard Light off of "Bad Out of Hell" that is awesome, and I think
Cool.
you should listen to that.
Cool.
Definitely. Maybe on the playlist this week.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'll throw it out there.
I think we should. Yeah, I think we should.
All right, so gents, project of the week.
Project of the week. When There's Love Around by Kiefer, Kiefer. This is a jazz artist that signed to Stone Throw Records, which is like what Madlib was signed to. They released Mad Villain on here. Jay Dilla has a couple albums on this. It's like a indie label. But yeah, this is just a jazz album that I came across a couple weeks ago before the end of the year. It came out in 2021. But yeah, man, it's really good. Good for when you're just working or you're reading or you're writing your journal or whatever. So yeah, man, this album's just been in the background while I've been working for the last couple weeks. So Kiefer, When There's Love Around.
Mine is Pinkerton by Weezer, one of the all-time great rock albums. Weezer's second best album. Just a masterpiece all around.
It's just so sad to me, Avery. It's so sad. I did the deep dive because you now know that Rivers Cuomo was depressed because of this album, and it's like,
yeah.
damn,
So very
it's always the
famously
best
in
one.
Weezer lore, this was their second album, the highly anticipated follow-up to the Blue album, but it was not critically well received, which
They
sent the
hated
lead
it.
singer Rivers Cuomo into a deep depression, and he did not release music and Weezer didn't release music for
He
like
didn't
years.
even
after
want to
this.
talk about it. Literally didn't
Yeah.
want to talk about it.
And now, as time has passed, it's considered one of their best albums. A lot of people think it's their best album.
Not
Yeah.
you though.
Not me though, because real ones know the Blue Album is
Avery said I
the
have
gold
taste.
standard. Because I mean I love Pinkerton a lot, obviously, but the Blue Album's still that album.
Avery, what would Weezer Stan say to me if I was like, I actually think OK Human's up there?
I just you wouldn't even take the opinion seriously.
Wow.
Yeah,
but
because like
but
I
I
never,
like that
I
album.
never
though.
say that.
It's good.
That's, like,
It is
crazy.
really good,
Like, who would
but-
say that? Like, what? Do you even listen?
Weezer fans are a tortured group of
I
individuals.
got you.
Like,
I got you.
it's
not
a
easy.
tough
It's not
thing.
easy. It's not easy.
It's a tough thing when your favorite artist releases their best album, their first album.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of just like downhill from there. So
It's tough. It's not easy being a fan of this.
they've done good albums since then, obviously, but just like they've never reached those heights again. It feels like.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, shout out Weezer. I chose "Let It Be" by the Beatles. This is because if you know me, you know this. I love music documentaries, like music movies, and Disney Plus had the "Let It Be."
Oh yeah, I heard that was great.
Beatles documentary, which literally is probably one of my favorite documentaries now, just because literally there's no plot. You're just in the room. It's showing you footage from when they were recording this album, and it was a really tense time in the band. It's like they were fighting a little bit. There were rumors about splitting. This was actually 2 years before they split, and they gave themselves like a month to record a brand new album while also shooting it for a TV special, while also doing a live performance. And you just see how that happens from nothing. And to me, it has provided so much insight and great music. So, I definitely look forward to putting some of the songs. Don't Let Me Down. I put that on my Instagram. Probably a jam by the good old John Lennon, Paul McCartney duo. And I'll probably put it on the playlist.
You watched all 9 hours.
All 9 hours.
Well, that's interesting because the Kanye documentary, Genius,
That comes out soon, like
Genius.
10 days.
comes
Next
out
week?
next week, and it's a
Are we
3-week
gonna
thing.
Are we gonna review that? Should we do movie?
That'd be kind of
music
fun.
movie
I'm
reviews?
interested.
Or are we
you know,
saving that for Oscar week?
I'm actually very down to do a review of that.
of
we should
Gen-
do it. I-
Genius
Incredibly down to do that.
with Cootie and Chike,
Shout out
the
to Chike.
renowned director duo from Chicago.
The first installment of it was shown at Sundance, and I heard really good things.
Yeah, you can
I'm-
also go see.
I
You can
bet it's
also go
20
see.
years worth of footage alone. I'm very
Yeah.
excited about it.
Yeah, honestly, I think it's longer than that. Honestly, I think
Y'all
it's like
think they ended up giving Kanye the final edit?
No,
no.
he
They
didn't.
said they
It's
didn't. They
coming
said
out.
they didn't. He said they didn't.
If Kanye got a hold of it, they would not come
Well,
out for
the
months.
thing is, it's
Because I'm sure
about.
they had like a contract signed
Yeah.
months ago.
But the thing is, it's about Kanye. But the directors talk about their relationship with Kanye. They're like, yeah, man, as he got bigger, we lost touch with them. Like it's about them too, like their relationship with him. So I love that. And yeah, you could also go see it in theaters too. So it's not just on Netflix. You could actually go in theaters. I'm not gonna do that because money.
Yeah.
But
But I love
yeah, it's free. You know what I'm saying?
I love that we found a way to get Kanye into the show somehow.
I know,
always.
man.
But
It's
Always.
it happens.
But that
But I'm
doesn't-
interested in this doc.
Yes.
And his album apparently comes out a week after that.
Y'all don't talk about that. We're not getting that album. I'm not letting people play with my
No, we're
emotions.
definitely not.
Like leave that man. Let that
I
man.
think we are. I think
When's
we
the last
are.
time you posted about that album? He's too busy posting after Julia Fox for some beef with
Chris
Kim.
Child.
I think we're getting it.
Okay. We'll see. But I guess we will next week will be a week closer to figuring out if he sticks to his promise. So we will see you all then. Thank you for listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, check out the newsletter, which comes out on Fridays. Check out our playlist, which come out on Tuesday. And follow us on all platforms at the 97 Demo. We will see you next week.